Okay, third time's a charm. Not just the movie, but my attempt to upload my commentary and start my commentary. Excuse me. Hi, this is Super Dave, and I'm very, very happy to be here. Very glad to be here. And, it took me a while to get the right super costume. Even this one is far from perfect. I'm not in shape like Chris Reeve was for the role, but you know, I my heart goes out to Christopher Reeve not only because he played Superman so well, obviously, but even after his accident, or even more so after his accident, he really became a Superman, the man who could fly on wires and be 100 feet up in the air, not afraid to want to continue and be an encouragement to others, even after he could barely move. And I believe he couldn't move from the neck down. So, anyway, this commentary is long awaited. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. 2 years ago, approximately on May 15th, 2021, I did a commentary on Superman 3, but I couldn't release it publicly because I had the sound on for Superman 3, and which I own on YouTube along with the other films, and Superman films, and Supergirl, and Santa Claus the movie, so on. So what I'm going to do today, and if you want to enjoy this commentary, I encourage you to do so. The only thing I would say is see the movie first, because this commentary is going to be filled with spoilers, and I but I'll tell you my feelings and thoughts and excitement on every aspect of this movie as we go along. I'll try to go through production or pre-production or post-production issues as we go through them, scene by scene. Obviously, I don't have every call sheet for the film, but mainly I want to engage this 2 hour and 5 minute movie, which happens to be my favorite movie of all time. I want to engage it primarily as an entertainment. That's it's the best entertainment out there, uh, in my opinion. Um, so I love this movie. It's not a perfect movie, but I love this movie. So what I would encourage you to do, and I'm going to go over to my screen now, is I'm going to keep my version of the movie on silent mode. That way, there are no copyright infringements. And the running time I have on YouTube is 2 hours and 4 minutes and 55 seconds if you have it on an old VHS, really old, or DVD, Blu-ray, etc. The movie is rounded up to 2 hours and 5 minutes, including the credits. So I'm going to count down from 10, and after I say 0, I'm going to say hit play. So let's go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hit play. Released by Warner Brothers. Came out on June 17th, 1983. It was a Friday. And it had its Washington, D.C. premiere on June 12th, 83. And its New York premiere on, putting the captions on, and its New York premiere on Tuesday, June 14th, 83. Here we have a very, very different opening to a Superman movie. This is, of course, Richard Pryor. And the director of the movie, Richard Lester, wanted to open this movie completely differently than the other two Supermans that came before it. But before I even get into that, How did Richard Pryor get involved in the movie? You can find it on the web. There is a May 20th, 1981 Johnny Carson show clip of Richard Pryor being asked by Johnny Carson, so what are you doing? What are you up to lately? What do you like to go see, like at the movies, etc.? It's like, oh, I'm waiting to see Superman 2. Boy, it's going to be great. The previews are great. Way soup, and the whole thing. You got to see it. But anyway, in terms of putting together a backstory for this, I'll go into that more in a second. The producers have done a very good job of going over that. Really, the opening of this scene that we're seeing here is Richard Pryor is playing a character named Gus Gorman, by the way, a character that was completely created for him. It wasn't like he was cast for a specific role like Gene Hackman was cast for Lex Luthor. And, he says 36 weeks of chronic unemployment. He's like, no, it's 35. And he realizes he can't get any more benefits. And so this deals with the stark reality of being in an unemployment office. Instead of Krypton exploding or the three supervillains from Krypton's Phantom Zone landing on Earth, you got this opening scene. But look, he finds his matchbook cover for a silly cigarette, and it says, "Earn big money, become a computer programmer." And man who can't find a job has an idea. Now, this is Pamela Stevenson walking down the stairs. This exterior stuff here was all shot in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The production there was for a month. There's Mark McClure, Jimmy Olsen, getting himself a hot dog. So you got Christopher Reeve, Richard Pryor in the credits, obviously. This is the first time Christopher Reeve gets top billing. But this was all shot in late August in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, around the week of August 22nd to August 27th. They tried to keep a 6-day-a-week shooting schedule while they were on location. Here's the opening title, Superman 3 over a bunch of fallen phone booths. Then you got a penguin catching on fire. Now, I don't know. For me to try to describe every little bit of this, it's crazy. It's like the continuity girl's nightmare, as Richard Lester likes to say. Richard Lester, of course, is the director of this movie. Richard Lester actually is my favorite director, although I have a tremendous love and affection for Richard Donner, who really got Superman going. And, there's other directors, General Schwartz, Sidney Furie. They did really great jobs on their pictures as well. But I remember when I was seeing Superman 3 for the first time, I went with my grandfather and I went with my sister, to the best of my knowledge, and probably saw that opening weekend, probably the Saturday or the Sunday of that opening weekend. So that would have been like the 18th or the 19th of June, somewhere around there. But I remember laughing hysterically during this opening credit sequence. I was a young 6-year-old at the time, but I just remember laughing hysterically seeing this. And it makes me think of a film that Richard Lester did called The Running, Jumping, and Standing Still film. I believe that was his first movie. And that's like an 11 or 12, 10-minute movie showing all kinds of just mishaps, one thing leading to another. And he found a way to get this into a comic book. But he's good with the stunts. He's good with setting up the action. Colin Chovers is in charge of the physical action, meaning the live stunt work. And Paul Weston, you see the guy in the white shirt there on the left. He's the main acting stuntman in this movie. Stunt coordinator. He's trying to get the guy out of there. They actually had to do this sequence twice because some guy thought that there was actually a problem and needed a real rescue. And they're like, no, we're filming a Superman movie. Christopher Reeve there, Clark Kent, he goes into the photo booth. That's Aaron Spolinski, who played the young Clark Kent in Superman 1. And he comes out, but then he realizes, oh, there's photos of me going from Clark to Superman. So he tears off the bottom one of him as Superman, and he hands it to the kid and pats him on the head. This is real live wire flying that Christopher Reeve supervised, uncredited, but he really, with David Lane, he really handled the flying sequences in terms of like the live flying. We'll get to this optic stuff later. But, you know, there's just so much to think about in terms of this is an epic. This is like the most irreverent way to open up a Superman movie. You know, there are people who aren't real thrilled with this. I know the executive producer, Ilya Salkin, was, and that looks like bird poop on there or paint. And then he gets a bucket, lands on his head, a dignified gent. There's a pantomime. He's trying to dance, and he slips and falls. You're thinking, what on earth does any of this have anything to do with Superman? Screenplay by David and Leslie Newman. And, you know, we'll come up on title cards of executive producer Ilya Salkin and producer Pierre Spengler, the blind man. He walks through a painting. You know, a lot of people didn't like this opening, but I thought it was funny when I first saw it. There's Pamela Stevenson, Christopher Reeve. There he gets the pie in the guy's face. They had to do that a couple times to get that take. I want to get directed by Richard Lester. I want to get more into the story, and then when there's maybe a little bit of a break in the action, talk about the backstory of it. I have that in other videos. So this, I would believe, would be an interior set at Pinewood Studios. The actual shooting schedule was Monday, June 21st, 1982, and principal photography, meaning with the main cast, including Richard Pryor, wound up around October 6th or October 7th of 82. Then Christopher Reeve had a break. He came back and did about 6 more weeks of filming special effects. So the movie finished with Chris around late November, early December 82. Richard Pryor here is discovering that he has a great skill for computers. He's like, how do you do all this? He's like, I don't know. I just did it. That's a shot taken from Dick Donner's footage in Superman 1. They filmed 1 and 2 together back in 77. We'll have to talk about it another time. That's Robert Vaughn as Ross Webster. This interior set for each movie, they've had to rebuild it, but it looks pretty much the same. The Daily Planet set, you have your Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. She has a very small role in this. That one shot right there that came with Laurel, I didn't like that. They should have cut that. But you have Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen, Jackie Cooper as Perry White. And it's good to have them all there. Some people have said that it misses some of the magic of the first 2 movies. A lot of people wondered, well, why did Margot Kidder end up leaving? You know, was it a creative decision, or did it have to do more with like a rift with the producer? She was not happy, as Christopher Reeve was not happy either. And I don't think Mark McClure, I don't think any of the main cast were happy that Richard Donner was let go, but Margot Kidder really opened her mouth about it. There you got Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent, telling Jimmy he's got a little mustard on his lapel there. And, you know, so the basic thing of this scene, and this was probably, the Daily Planet stuff was probably shot quite early on. Again, I don't have all the call sheets, but I remember reading it was like the middle of July or something like that. And I think Margot Kidder was just on the film a day and a half, and probably the rest of those 4, the four of them together, plus Pamela Mandel there working the Jingo machine. This set was probably only filming for about 5 days or a week. There's no major action on this set, so Richard Lester works very quickly and economically. You can get this done. You know, it's one thing to have villains crashing through this place. But if you're just doing talking or acting scenes, you don't really have to storyboard the same way. But anyway, let's get into the story. Clark Kent is looking to go back to his Smallville high school reunion. There he goes, shows his Smallville shirt, but people think, ooh, is that Superman? You know, like Superman? And you'll find out in a minute that Lois has her plans too. So, we'll see how that develops. So the Clark's given the go-ahead to go. And then Lois says, oh, Lois has the vacation. And she's like, Clark, some people get to go all the way to Smallville. And then there's others of us who have to go to Bermuda. Golly. And she says, bye, out of the picture. Okay. We'll have a lot more of her in Superman 4. But then Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent and then Mark McClure, they'll go off together to Smallville. He's like, can't we get a computer to do this? And then, of course, Richard Lester, the next thing that he cuts to is a computer. And so these scenes were shot around September 23, 24, maybe 25, after Calgary, after they came back from Calgary in late September. There's call sheets showing that these scenes were done then. And it's Gus Gorman's Richard Pryor's Gus Gorman getting a paycheck. It's supposed to be $225 a week, but he gets $143.80. How am I supposed to live on that? State tax, federal tax, Social Security tax. So you get money when you're age 65. I want to enjoy it while I'm young. Get down, boogie, boogie, boogie. But then he has this clever plot device here. Actually, it's probably more like $143.80 There's always fractions left over in big corporations. That guy coming through here, I'm wondering if this is the real commissary. Is that Dusty Simons in the red shirt there? I'm wondering. The assistant director. See the guy in the red shirt walking past? I'm wondering if this is the real commissary at Pinewood or if it's probably a studio set at Pinewood. But again, this stuff with these other actors, Lou Hirsch and Bill Reinhold, that was all done. Their scenes were all done like September 23, 24, somewhere in there. Of 82. So Gus has this plan. What about all the half cents that are just floating around out there? So he has a whole plan to do that. I might want to just add briefly, but I've talked about this in other videos. In fact, I released a video last week. You can listen to it, and it has to do more with the production side of it. Originally Brainiac was going to be in this, Mixie Pitalik, they were going to have Supergirl. But once Richard Pryor came into it, the story was really written around him, and his character was created for him. And a lot of people argue that it's not a Superman movie, that it's more of a Richard Pryor movie. But I think Pryor is just wonderful. It's like having him in the movie theater and come out and being in the movie. This is all in Calgary or Alberta, Canada, right outside Calgary. This was shot in early September, I believe, of 82. One of my favorite websites, I'll give a shout out to two of them actually, Superman3.com and Super Duper Podcast News. Also, I love CapeWonder.com. So it's many, many websites. But you got some really brilliant people that run those sites, like Jim Bowers and another guy named Alex, who's really great. And anyway, this was all a petrochemical plant for this fire sequence. This was all done right outside of Calgary. And the special effects director, Colin Trover, said the smoke was so bad from the real life fires that they set for this that I think it interfered with airport traffic at Calgary's airport. International Airport. So there we go. Danger, that goes with the territory, Mr. Kent. And that's a spin-off on a line from Superman 2 where he says, that could be dangerous, Mr. White. It's like it goes with the territory, Kent, except this time Jimmy's saying it rather than Perry White. It's amazing that they never notice he's really Superman, even when he changes in the back of a car. Most of this was actually shot at Southern Alberta Turbo Refinery, a real petrochemical plant. According to Colin Chovers, it was just about to come on stream. It cost about $400 million to make. They said that because Richard Lester is such a fast director, they were in and out of there in just a couple days or just a few days. So I would imagine they shot this around September 6th, 7th, maybe 8th, 9th, something like that. Give or take, a few days. A lot of this is wire work. What's amazing, and I think they use like a crane or a wire. You'll see him about to lift up the tube there to let the people down. It's a very clever device. They use all these cranes and these wires, but it's just brilliantly painted out. And in fact, this is Warner Brothers did a re-release of the Superman movies very recently, this past April. And while there's an issue I have with Superman 4 with the music, I don't think there's any problems on Superman 3 that I can see. I mean, all the wires are painted out, and I think all the other movies, they've painted out the wires, even 4. But what's amazing is how they shot all this, or most of this, in live action. Today, you wouldn't have a scene like this. The insurance companies wouldn't pay for this. You'd have CGI doing all this. Well, back then they didn't have CGI. But I love what Richard Lester has to say. He says, I think the idiocy of a film company to go to a place, time out for a minute, this interior part is at Pinewood. Probably later when they came back from Canada, they shot this with the scientist in the lab. But what Lester was saying about, I think the idiocy of going to a place where you're not allowed to bring a cigarette lighter because of the danger of flame and to set the whole thing alight, it shows the foolishness in our business. So it's really, really something. There is at least one or couple shots coming up that I believe are studio. There were certain stunts that had to be finished in studio. Some of it's models, some of it's, I would imagine, opticals, meaning kind of like early forms of animation that are put in after principal filming. So you can tell it's like a stuntman wide angle, but then the close-ups are on Mark McClure. And watching this, it still amazes me 40 years later. And, if those chemicals heat up, it's going to create now this shot here is Pinewood Studios. That's been documented, I truly believe. And towards the end where Chris doing his special effects work, that part where he picks up Jimmy, that's probably Pinewood. Or maybe they just had him in Calgary. Now, the part where he lifts him there, or where he's coming down there on the wires, that's Calgary. Or, the Calgary area, I should say. Alberta, Canada. They shot a lot of Superman 1 in Alberta, Canada 5 years earlier. So, but this is really something here. Plot-wise, Chief, we got to get that fire out in the east wing. Otherwise, we're going to have acid all over the eastern seaboard. Good shot there. Probably model. Oh, no, they're out of water. I don't like that they say the word Christ unless they mean that in a prayerful way, not a vain way. That comes out of my personal Christian faith. Where's this lake? That way. So you got, some really good shots here, like traveling match shots here. I'm probably focusing too much on the production and not enough on just enjoying the story. I like to enjoy the story. So he flies down to this lake, maybe not the lake he flies over, but the lake that he lands in, I believe is a lake in England that they've used for Superman 2. They used it for Supergirl. Might be Black Forest Lake or something. I don't know. I could be wrong about the name. And then, a lot of stuff where it's just Chris doing the special effects. And it's amazing. You get like these traveling match shots. It's amazing. And then you got Zoptic, which Zoran Perisic was in charge of. On this one, he really was a consultant on. You have the backgrounds filmed first, and then you film Chris in front of the backgrounds. And he drops that like ice that's made of candy glass. You also got Roy Field putting out the fire. Superman did a great job, and they take him for granted, but they still call him a miracle. And it's really, really something. And this guy, the laboratory guy, he's totally relieved. It's like, thank God. He's, just amazing. I'll tell you, that man's a miracle. Al Matthews, he also narrates the making of documentary. Okay, this is in High River, Alberta, Canada. It's about 30 miles south of Calgary. That's Annette O'Toole there, I truly believe. Yeah, that's her. Class of 65. So timeline-wise, this would be in 1980. Even if you see 83 on a paycheck, continuity-wise, it sounds like 1980. Because 65 plus 15 is 80. This interior set, at least one site said it was the Carl Safran High School. I would have reason to believe that the exteriors were shot in Alberta or High River, but the interior, I've read other production articles where they said that this was one of the sets on one of the stages at Pinewood. And that's Gavin O'Harley there, the late Gavin O'Harley as Brad Wilson, if you remember him from the first Superman movie. And Annette O'Toole plays Lana Lang. This is also a homage with the song Roll Over Beethoven to the Beatles, which, of course, Richard Lester directed them in two of the great movies, especially A Hard Day's Night and then also Help. And there you go. Clark Kent is remembering Lana. Lana's remembering him, and we'll have a new kind of love story in this movie. It's just a different story, and I'll comment on it as we go along. I really love it a whole lot. So, but it's just it's really something. Lana was originally in the early drafts. I've talked about like the production issues. This commentary, I think I should focus more on the story issues and just kind of responding to the movie as if I'm a fan to seeing this and not just, gee, am I an expert on it? But this was probably shot in like mid-July because the first, Annette O'Toole said she was there for a month, then went home to Texas for a month, then was in Calgary for a month. So, this is probably like during her time at Pinewood. And Clark, it's interesting. You see there, she's flipping the records with the plates. Clark, he's very interesting because he's such a klutz in the first two movies, and he's a little klutzy here, but then he realizes, I don't have to put on an act for this girl. She knew me when I was a young kid growing up. Brad Wilson, he's got a drinking problem. He's a real drunk. In many ways, he's a real jerk, played by a nice actor named Gavin O'Harley. He's the son of Dan O'Harley. I believe they have both passed, but they're wonderful actors. And Lana wants to get out of a rough situation there and asks Clark says, Clark already asked me to dance with her. Stick to those rhythm and blues. Earth Angel. And by the way, 2 years later in Back to the Future, they play that. And it's one of the best pieces of music for another film of mine. That one I put at number 8. A lot of this commentary might be the same as what I did when I did it originally, but it's just the moviegoer's reaction. Okay, here we go. Websco Payroll Department. paychecks might say 83 on them, but I don't know. Here we go, back to September 23rd, 24th, 25th. You got Richard Pryor's Gus Gorman getting his check, but then he said, "Wait a minute, I put in a voucher for expenses." Oh yeah, August Gorman. There we go. Just so clever in terms of the plot. Here we go. 85,789.90. And the man just can't keep the joy to himself. He can't keep it to himself. Oh. Okay, back to July again in one of the Pinewood stages, I assume. You need a lot of room to build a set, and so even if they did some stuff at a school, but what I like about this is, or love about this, is you're going to notice quickly that Lana Lang, she's really in love with Clark, and just thinks Superman's a nice guy. And even back in high school when you were queen of the prom, 3 years after the royal wedding, the king abdicated. In other words, her husband left her. One thing that the producers have mentioned about this scene is it was scheduled for a whole day, and Pierre Spengler came down at about 11 o'clock. I guess Ilya Salkin did as well. There's a picture of the director and the producers on this set, and he'd already finished. And if you look at it real carefully, it's like a tracking shot that's all one take. And it's really something. But Lana here, she's talking, it's maybe like a cutaway shot with a picture, but that's it. Lana here, though, she's talking about she had to pawn her diamond ring. And Clarkson says, "Hey, that's a shame." That's Chris actually playing the piano there. She's like, "You never got married," and it kind of hints back to Superman 2. Well, I was, no, not. In other words, he didn't really bring up Lois, but, it's a different story. Okay. Beautiful picture. That's not Jeff East. That's Christopher Reeve there. Okay, Ross Webster's Robert Vaughn. $85,000 missing. Embezzled Mr. Webster, stolen from the firm. And then we're going to have a couple other characters here. By whom? Whom? Vera, get a hold of yourself. Nobody else ever will. I could just read the whole script, but let them enjoy it, But I love this with Mr. Simpson here. In the old days, we kept books, we had ledgers, we knew what was going in and what was paid out. If somebody wanted to rob you, why they'd say stick them up. Now they get these blasted computers. Whoever pulled this caper is tomorrow. And then this again is Pamela Stevenson as Lorelei, and Annie Ross as Vera Webster, Robert Vaughn as Ross Webster. And I believe the other actor's name is Robert Henderson. I could be wrong about that, but I'll look him up in the credits. And this set, as far as I understand it, most or all of it was shot after Calgary in September of 82. So this was done like around the 19th, 20th, 21, 22, 23 of 82. Perhaps maybe they covered some of this before. But again, because it's not an action-oriented set for the most part, Richard Lester, like I've said many, many times, he's such a fast director that he can get this done in just a couple of days. And but here they're wondering, who's this idiot that took $85,000? They won't bring attention to themselves unless they're complete and utter moron. But then here you got a nice red Lamborghini, I assume, or Ferrari. there's Richard Pryor coming out, and amazing. Now this bowling alley, I thought originally this was filmed in Canada, but no. I listened to an interview with Paul Kethler. He plays young Ricky here, and he said this was actually filmed at a real bowling alley in England, somewhere outside of Pinewood Studios. And this is a very, very funny scene coming up. Again, spoiler alert, see the movie first. But as Gene Shalit had said in an interview, it's funny how Clark can't reveal that he's Superman, and yet he needs to help the kid. And so we're going to have a little special effects gag here that's, I think, very, very funny. See, he's not a very good bowler. By the way, I took bowling in college. I got a B+ in it. Really something. Wasn't a great bowler, but I got by. This is very funny though. I'm just absorbing this for a second. And I like the way Clark is a little bit more like in his face, And in the first movie, he's like, guys like that Brad, I just want to tear him apart. And then now he's starting to do that in a polite way, but now he's starting to do that. Here you go, Ricky. Give it your best shot, okay? There you go. And then he knocks over like an ashtray or something with dust, and he has a super sneeze. Boom! And then they blow up all those pins. Colin Chovers has a great book on how they did that without giving too much away. Gesundheit, thank you. And then we're back to the September 23rd, 24th, 25th, give or take. He's like, Gus, the boss wants to see you. He's like, not that boss, the boss. Why would he want to see me? I mean, why would the boss want to see me? And Lester, he just, for the most part, he keeps the camera just nice and still on a lot of his shots. And he does a lot of his shots all in one take. Many, many times. Not every time, but many times. Look at the way his eyes light up there. It's just funny. Now, this is back to Calgary, I believe. This was a real high rise, and, that's Pryor there on the elevator. And riding up. There's a cut scene of Leslie Newman telling him just to go in and see him. Leslie Newman's one of the writers, but they cut that scene out. So now he's going to meet Webster. Again, we're back to like probably September of 82. You can see Webster sitting off in the right corner there of the shot. There we go. Mr. August Gorman. This is really weird dialogue. He's like, I don't want to go to jail. It's just really, really bad. He's like, Gus, you've been a naughty guy, haven't you? Come on, admit it now. Admit it. You've been just a little bit naughty, haven't you? I was the kind of, oh, that's all right, pal. I understand. Where the young folks say today, dig where you're coming from, brother, huh? And it's funny. It's humorous. It's humorous. Some people have said Robert Vaughn is not a replacement for Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor. Well, in a way, I agree. But we don't need Lex Luthor in every Superman movie. I mean, I love Lex Luthor. He's wonderful. But Pryor here holds his own. And Ross Webster, he discovers that if Gus is that smart enough to outwit a computer, taking all the half cents from the computer and putting it into his account, that he can do other crazy things for Ross Webster, the owner of Websco. And he talks about the company, Little's Inc. here, railroads, farm machinery. He's like, I want coffee. And he thinks a cup of coffee. He's like, no. I want to control all the coffee. I've been to Bolivia. They mentioned that here, but they want to go after Colombia. And what's interesting, and Christopher Reeve has said this himself in interviews, that, like I said, the movie starts out on a small matchbook cover and then it works its way out into epic proportions or epic situations. But it's all dependent essentially on Richard Pryor's character, Gus Gorman, his knowledge of computers. It's not a big brainiac in outer space, but you're going to see something that's sort of like a brainiac or could be a brainiac or is a brainiac toward the end of the movie. He wants to destroy the entire Colombian coffee crop right down to the last bean. I love that line. It is not enough to think, it is not enough that I succeed. Everyone else must fail. That's from Attila the Hun. Seems fair. I mean, imagine seeing this the first time in the movie and the laughter and just, maybe some of the more traditional fans didn't go for it, but it did quite well, box office. Gus thinks that Vera is his mother, but she's his baby sister. Vulcan is a weather satellite to monitor the weather, but if they can reprogram it, it can make weather. Again, this is fantasy, fiction, reality. It's how are you going to make weather? That's an act of the Lord. That's an act of God. But it's a comic book. It's a movie. All right, there we go. Mark McClure. Unfortunately, he doesn't get any more time in this. This is his last scene in the movie. He's got a broken leg. Perry White's upset at him. Again, we're back to the July 82 set at Daily Planet, Pinewood. And Mr. and Mrs. Stoke is here. Win the jackpot for the South America trip. And this is it, just he's back and bye Jimmy. They bring a lot more of him back into the fourth movie. And also Supergirl. This scene was cut down. Editor John Victor Smith, he did some editing on this. I think to get more to the point of the scene, Richard Pryor, he's reluctantly agreeing to go to Smallville. Here we go. Smallville. This was shot on Wednesday, August 18th, 1982. Now watch out here. There's Lana coming out. This is all on High River. Now watch out. Chris opens the door. Ooh, real bad, where you don't want to get hurt. Oh, brother. But there's a news clip of them showing them in High River doing that scene. Now, there's going to be a part here where he says the words Jesus and Christ. And again, as a Christian believer, I can't condone that. It just, it's a movie and it's a line of dialogue that I feel is being said in vain that I don't agree with. But I love the Kentucky Fried Chicken Colonel Sanders suit. That'll reappear. Here we go. It's like a rainbow over the Blackie, Alberta, Canada. This was shot in, I believe, around August 29th, 30th, 31. This is to represent the cornfields of Smallville. And it's a little bit jarring. I'll explain why. I love the dialogue, but it seems like Richard Lester really wanted to rush through this, and he told his cameraman, Bob Panther, look, I know it's going to rain or just rain, but I want to get things done quickly. I don't want to wait for a perfect, bright, open sky. So the first part of the scene, you see the wind blowing around. It looks like there's a thunderstorm brewing. You can even hear thunder in the shots. Although it's nice that they caught the rainbow. I love the gag here, though, about the Buster's dog food. It's funny. He's not human, so he can eat dog food. When I was a little kid, I did that at my grandmother's house. I ate cat food. Very silly. Dumb. But Paul Cathard gave a great interview on spending time on this. And it's just, I love the dialogue, even though I think if Donna were doing this, they would have given her a little bit more sunlight. waited a little bit longer on the shot. I think that's why the producers liked Lester so much, because they knew he could work fast and under budget, under schedule. Not cheap, but like fast. But this is a good conversation here. How could I make it in Metropolis, or what would I do to make it in Metropolis? Oh, I wouldn't want to call you. You wouldn't want to call me? Oh, yes, I want to call you, but I mean, I wouldn't want to be a nuisance to you. And you feel sort of like a deep, like affection, love, but this movie doesn't have as much emphasis on that. You'll see this. Oh, my oil pan is leaking. So instead of finishing it off with like a real payoff of a love story, it's kind of held back. It's kind of, Clark knows, or the writers know, that they can't just remake Superman 2 all over again. But still, he cares about Lana. Lana cares about him, but then she's got a problem with her car, and then it tries to set up an action scene, which is a good action scene, even a great action scene. He's got the super hearing there, put in post-production, the hearing. And again, this was shot, I believe, over a 3-day period. Now you see how the skies are maybe clearing a little bit, but you'll really notice it when he has to take off. And a lot of this was real, obviously using optical printer for him changing costume and stuff. There he flies off. There's these wheat threshers that are trying to get after Ricky. Now look at the sky now. It's just a wide open sky. It's a beautiful sunny day. Probably shot the next day or what have you. They had to use, there were second unit call sheets for certain of these shots. Maybe a couple of them were blue screen, but a lot of live wire shots where they were actually on location. He's saving the boy there, Ricky, again played by Paul Keffler. Gosh, is he all right? The guy's like relieved. Now the shot coming up here, I don't know if that's Zoptic or if it's blue screen. If it's Zoptic, they must have gotten the background plates and then filmed it in September when they came back to the studio. Or maybe they did a blue screen beforehand. But I love that. Superman, he's like, that's me. There's a nice, landing there. This is all Blackie, Alberta, Canada. And I like this. And this is Clark. Clark, he's like, I really have to be going, Ricky. Bye. See, now it's nice and sunny. For the most part, you get a little overcast. It's the weather. Look at this. I found him. So now look, it's like a bright open day. There's a really funny line coming up here. Aren't you excited? Can you get Superman's autograph? I don't know. If I had a nickel for every time some little kid, he's like, I'm tired of Superman. It's like Clark doesn't like Superman or something. This is High River, I believe. This is probably done around August 20th. This exterior going into this interior lobby. I think it's an interior of a motel or a hotel or something. There's Brad Wilson, Gavin Hurley. Now, I love the Colonel Sanders suit that Richard Pryor has on here. It's very, very humorous. You could say it's a product placement send up, but you think, how is Brad Wilson going to just open the door for this guy? And I've had a theory that, did Gus Gorman do a little research on the security guard and find out that this man loves to drink, and if he shows a bottle of an open case of booze, as he's doing now, that he'll let him in. No ID necessary, no other security check, just pal, you're a real lifesaver. I mean, a real lifesaver. Hey, which way's your office? Straight on ahead. Follow me, huh? I'm right behind you. Oh yeah. Now this other stuff, I don't know where he's getting Brad drunk. I don't know if this is at Pinewood or if this is at in that same building in Calgary or in High River. I don't know. But I'm willing to bet a lot of the studio stuff was the interior stuff was mostly done in Pinewood Studios. And then they did the exterior stuff, a lot of it in Canada. But, for this Smallville stuff. But he gets him drunk. It's silly, but it's funny. I like it. I love the hat that he wears. It's just very, very funny. Brother. Job well done, buddy. You thought I was drunk too, didn't you? Ha, fooled you. And Pryor, he's he just has so much, what I can see on screen anyway, so much fun. And he gets scared there in the mirror, and he's scared of himself. And 11:25 on the clock time, so it's overnight, at least story time. There we go. More product placement. Kentucky Fried Chicken. Just really something. He's like, hello, baby. Hello, baby. Again, a lot of this you think, well, not enough Superman in it, but you got a character who is in the Superman movie. He popped into the Superman movie. And all the big stuff is going to pay off or develop because of Pryor. And yet Pryor's got a nice heart. He's been blackmailed. Both keys at the same time. Whoa. And I love, they could just set it up easier with less imagination, where they just turn the computer on and no problem whatsoever. I'm just stretching the feet there. But Richard Lester, he wants to showcase gags. Let's face it. They want to go the comedy direction here. He's pretending he's driving a car going, Gavin O'Harley passed out drunk, his character. Again, probably Pinewood for a lot of this. And unless they did shoot it in Canada, I really don't know. But you probably build a Pinewood set for stuff like this with the computers. It makes sense. So anyway, he's getting Brad there to help him with the computer. Really an amazing set piece. And it's, I think Gus is a little drunk, so he's having a little trouble himself. Well, look. He's got the computer on. Remember, they didn't have smartphones. They didn't have computers like they do today. They didn't have YouTube. So if this seems primitive to some of my younger listeners, generation-wise, hey, it is what it is. This was actually second unit shots at the University of Calgary around August 24th, 82. And then, I guess first or second unit, that's Peter Whitman there as a guy at an ATM. What would you do if you were an ATM machine and the computer started sending you extra money? What would your integrity be? Would you take the extra money, or would you just report the problem? I mean, I've had money taken back into the machine, but he's had extra money coming out of the machine, and it's just really something. He played the police officer in like the deputy in Superman 2 in the small town. I mean, they should have trimmed that a little bit there, but at the ATM. But it's not a perfect movie, but it's still my favorite movie. And this is a whole nother thing. I'm guessing this is kind of showing through time what happens. You get these Bloomingdale's, credit card bills, and this is kind of showing the effects, maybe in time, a day or two later, of what the consequences are. But here we go, another way of messing up with the numbers. 176,784.57 cents, and the man puts a like grapefruit or something, or an orange in his wife's face. He's in Santa Claus the movie, and she's plays like a weird witch character in, or a weird party character in Supergirl. All right, again, this is like Calgary, late August, early September. That maybe second unit, or maybe first, but the stuff with the traffic lights. You think, well, why don't they just cut to the chase of him getting the coffee crop destroyed? But they want to showcase Skaggs. It's very silly. I don't think that Richard Donner, I'm quite sure he wouldn't direct anything like this. But it's humorous. It's fun. It loses some of the verisimilitude or maybe some of the reality, but it's a comic book. And I love what Ilya Salkin has said, which is, if somebody could prove to me that this could not happen, I would love to see the proof. So, all right, here we go. Now he's getting into it. Finally figuring it out. Vulcan program, Earth scan command, longitude, and the other thing, latitude, right? Very, very funny. Now we're getting into the meat of the story a little bit more. Colombia, South America. Again, this is most likely, I'm pretty sure this is July, because these two actors here, they were on the Daily Planet set, so they probably utilized them for this other partially interior, partially exterior set in that's supposed to represent Colombia. There's a storm. I remember Colin Chovers in his book saying he wished that Lester had given more time and epic scope to this sequence instead of what we're going to see in a few minutes, which is Richard Pryor basically describing most of this and occasional cutaway shots to Superman saving the day. But, it's like you have a certain establishing shots, and then you might have some stock footage coming up. But they're getting hurt real bad. And the machines, it's like they want to play God. He's messing with the system so that he can stir up the weather systems and mess with it. Look at all these people. I'm guessing that this is probably stock footage. Maybe not, but it probably is. It's going to threaten to destroy the coffee crop for the next 5 years. Again, Pinewood, MBS News, Metropolis Broadcasting System or Service. This is a big set coming up. The most awesome display, like since Noah's Ark. Now, if you've never seen this before, you're going to think this is a real ski slope, and you'll be fooled for just a second. But then the camera pulls up, and voila, he's got a ski slope on the top of a building. Originally, this was going to be like a swimming pool, he said, but they'd already done that with Lex Luthor. Again, fiction, reality. How do you keep the snow from melting on a hot summer's day? They used Epsom salt. Took them 3 months to build the set. I think they shot this stuff probably in like late July, going into early August of '82. I don't have the call sheets, but there are pictures showing like around the July time that, within a couple of weeks or early in Pryor's arrival, they had shot this stuff. Now, right now, they think they've won. They got the coffee. Now they want to get the oil. And again, it's just Ross Webster's scheme to try to get more rich. Then Pryor comes out here. It's not my fault. What's not your fault? Superman. And he describes the scene as opposed to perhaps more of what a Richard Donner would do, or even Lester, is more of a dramatic showing of special effects in seriousness of what he would have done. But I like that Pryor describes it. I enjoy this. You lose some of the reality here with the pink tablecloth, but look what I'm wearing. I'm trying to be Superman. But he's very good here. See, you get occasional cutaway shots of Superman. A long time has gone by. Quite a little bit of time has gone by since Superman has had a scene. Um, I love the way he describes Superman, like his excitement, his enthusiasm. This originally went on much longer, and editor John Victor Smith did a very good job of just kind of taking the essential dialogue so that it doesn't go on and on and on and on. But there is going to be a very jarring, very big stunt coming up that took them about a week to rehearse it or more, where you'll see it, and Christopher Reeve was very, very, very upset about that. I mean, it's already silly that he's describing with the pink tablecloth. But you could see here that Gorman, deep in his heart, he has an affinity for Superman. I mean, he was bad. And then Robert Vaughn is very, very upset here. It was a perfect plan. It was foolproof. We were the fools. And Gorman, he's been blackmailed. He's not really a bad guy, although he does a lot of bad things in this movie. And they have to find a way to get rid of Superman. Here we go, Kryptonite. Lorelai's supposed to be silly or dumb, but in reality, she's not. And this really leads to the most important part of the film. Oh, I know a few things. I understand from the graffiti I've seen. Wait a second, she's right. Kryptonite. And this echoes back to the first film. Krypton. Gus says it's nowhere. Again, they're referencing that Krypton exploded in the first movie. He was sent here when he was just a baby. But then they realize that there's debris from the planet, and you can just find out, scan one of those pieces of debris and find out what the ingredients of kryptonite are. Now, this part up here where he says, this scene coming up here, Christopher Reeve absolutely hated. If I were editing this, I would have just said, well, let's get good old Gus to contact the Vulcan satellite and then cut to the next scene with him on the computer. But instead, you have this huge thing. That's actually Greg Elam actually skiing down the side of a building on August 27th. Then that's more of him down the side of a building. Again, the stunt man. I think this bottom part is like August 17th. And then there you have Pryor inserted in finishing out his first day, August 17th in Calgary. But Christopher Reeve hated that scene. He felt it totally removed the verisimilitude of the character and was making fun of the character and disrespecting the character. But anyway, Gus is now in the computer, and the computer analyzes the components, and the boys of the lab duplicated stuff down here. It goes to a floating chunk of kryptonite. So they could have just cut to this and not had him skiing off the building. But, Lester wanted that in there. I think Warner Brothers were really the ones who wanted it in there. More Pryor, more money. But a lot of fans laughed, but a lot got upset, particularly Christopher Reeve. And they can't know what the unknown ingredient is, so he puts tar from the cigarettes, 0.57%, into that ore. Again, we're back on the Daily Planet set, July of 82. And, you got these actors back again. And they're complaining about what happened to them, but then you got a really sweet conversation here. Old relationships seem very much the same. The prettiest girl in the school is still the prettiest girl in the school. And he's much calmer, he's much more relaxed in this one. Now Lana's calling him, and some have said that this was stage E in like the first stuff they shot, or some of the first stuff they shot with Lana, the house interior set. Others, it's possible to believe that they actually filmed this in High River and they let them use the interior of the house. But I'll get to why I believe the junkyard is 99.99% the first stuff that they shot in the movie. But Ricky, told all his friends Superman would be there, and Clark agrees to fill in and get him Superman. But I love what Lana says there about Superman. Tell him he's wonderful, but Clark, you're the best. And these people, Perry says, it's an act of God. And she's like, in a church? This is cute here with, you got kind of oil tankers in the background there. Some kind of wire thing there. Pryor's falling asleep. And it's a nice close-up. Hey, here's that compound you ordered. Can't imagine what you want with it, but you got. I guess most people, at least within the movie universe, don't know what kryptonite's going to do to Superman. I mean, imagine if he gives his stuff to Superman and he dies on the spot. Wouldn't Gus be arrested? Right on the spot? It's crazy. Now, this scene was shot on Thursday, August 19th, 1982. There's a lot of references for that, articles for that. It's a very hot, nice day when they shot this. Gordon Singer as the mayor. Gordon Singer. And again, they're acknowledging that he not only put out the fire, the Lake Canoga fire, but also for saving little Ricky. And Chris just has like such a warm spirit about him. Even if he didn't like the whole movie, he gives it his all. You're going to see some shots, I think, coming up. Here we go. Richard Pryor, and I believe that's not Annie Ross, because there was an article where Annie Ross said she did all her stuff in England. So I'm guessing that's a stand-in with glasses, but then the close-up shots are at Pinewood of her there. Now, Pryor gives a kind of a funny or very funny speech. I like the strength of his performance, but it does kind of crowd out Superman, and you're going to see some looks on Reeves' face where he looks a little bit like, you're taking away my movie, or it's not my movie. But he's such a brilliant actor, both of them, Reeve and Pryor. But Superman kind of gets the back seat here. And a lot of people, including Reeve himself, didn't like that. Ilya Salkin has said that the scene goes on way too long. Now, did he break that on purpose? And they just kept it in? I think so. The stick there? There's a thing about Pryor. Sometimes it takes him a few times to get it, like skimming stones, as Reeves said. But once he's got it, he's got it. And you got to watch out, because it's really, he's going to sell the scene. Chris is like, not real happy here. But I think in real life, he wasn't real happy with this. How do you keep your cool in front of hundreds of extras, and in the back of your mind you don't like what's going on in the film? Half of this nation of ours almost bit the bullet if it wasn't for this man here. No, I love this. I like this a lot. This was cut down too. The TV version went on way too long. I love that. Thank the Lord for Superman. Superman, you saved our bacon. I'd like to show our gratitude. Like I mentioned a minute ago, what if this stuff were to kill him? But it doesn't. He's reacting like, is this going to hurt me? And I guess not. And I've always had a theory. Is it the kryptonite, the synthetic kryptonite or the ersatz kryptonite that makes Superman turn bad, or does he say, "Hey, this stuff didn't really have an effect on me, so what gives?" And maybe he's become a little bit slack in his attitude. I would hope it's just through no fault of his own, the kryptonite. That Gateway, Hotel Gateway, that was in Finders Keepers a year later when they shot that in '83, also by Richard Lester, director. Again, another KFC reference, the chicken in the bucket, and nobody knows the ingredient because it's unknown, right? Well, in the kryptonite, there was an unknown element, and it's unknown, and Superman didn't die. Great line here. I asked you to kill Superman, and you're telling me you couldn't even do that one simple thing. And he just drops the phone out of his hand and lands around. Really something. Exterior, High River, with the dog there, Buster. Superman 3 has said that .com has stated that this stuff here, and there are some call sheets that this was like the first day Superman becoming evil. But Christopher Reeve, as well as David and Leslie Newman, the writers, have made statements that the Junkyard set was the first thing they were on. But that apparently this was E stage at Pinewood, but it could be High River. I don't know for sure. But look how he changes there. And his acting here is just impeccable. It's brilliant. And this is why the video is not all entirely for kids, because they may not understand this one. Parents have to explain it to them. So that's his first progression toward evil. I remember Annette O'Toole saying the first time she saw Superman, it was really something. He's just coming on over here. This guy's a real creep. And there's 4 levels of depravity, 1, 2, 3, and 4, according to the call sheets and what Christopher Reeve himself has said. He's just staring at her. Does she know that Clark and Superman are the same? If she does, she certainly has to block it out of her mind. We'll get back to Clark much, much later. And then he's like coming out of a frenzy. Oh, yeah, I got to get going. Real creepy scene. Now, this was shot in Longview, Alberta, Canada. They're trying to save the guy out of the truck. I believe they get him out in just enough time. It's a wide-angle shot, though, so it's hard to tell. But this was done around September 13th or so, 12th, 13th of 82, right before they left to go back to Pinewood. I don't like it when they put the word God and damn together. I don't like that. But, if you're only there a minute sooner. Now this, I've been to Italy. I have a little model like one of those. I'll show it off sometime. It's funny. I went to Italy in '94 with my high school choir. But those are real background plates shot in Italy, and that's Christopher Reeve on his optic system flying. So some of the footage is really Italy, and then some of it's like a model or a close-up shot in the studio. Those 2 guys, the pizza vendor and the street cleaner, sweeper, that, they're in front of a blue screen, and they put the whole lot together. And he takes the Leaning Tower of Pisa and straightens it. It's a very funny gag. Superman's really becomes a jerk in this movie. And he goes, "Stanja Superman." Crazy. That's interesting. Time, goodness at the crosswords. roads. I think this was around the 21st of September, 82, after they got back from Calgary. And, they, again, in the Ross Webster set, the interior set, there's also the ski slope set that we already saw. So, but it's like the kryptonite wasn't a complete failure after all. He became a normal person. Like being a bad guy is like being a normal person to them. Now they can work on the oil, but Gus gives a reluctant, might be a stock shot or might be Pinewood, but I have a feeling a lot of it is an exterior set that was built at Pinewood, at least the close-up stuff. And I remember seeing a call sheet for this Olympic scene, like the birds going off there. I think it was around July 7th, 8th, somewhere around there. So it would be around day 12, 13, something like that, give or take. And it's amazing. There's Superman. They might have shot that separately, but he's just standing there and looking down at the crowd. And that guy in the red shirt looks a lot like Christopher Reeve. But, going across the country for 970 miles, and he's about to light the Olympic flame, but look what Evil Soups does. He blows out the flame. Just being a jerk. He's not dangerous like General Zod is dangerous. He's just being a complete jerk. I don't know if nebbish is the right word, but now, here we go again. Lorelei, she's reading Critique of Pure Reason. Okay, a little too revealing there. That's one of my issues with her character and the way the movie treats her. But they did that with Miss Tessmacher too. I'm very conservative. But anyway, got Gus in a nice suit there, and you got Ross Webster and Vera and Lorelei. And he's like, well, don't we need captains on these ships? And put them, they want to get them all in the middle of the Atlantic so they don't deliver the oil. And do what? And do nothing. Just sit there. How are all the people going to get their oil? You catch on fast, but Pryor, as well as the others, and Vaughn, etc., they're brilliant in this. Now, Vera, she's really like the nastiest person in this movie. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, she's playing a villainess, but she's like the nastiest character. And then here we go, Robert Vaughn. Tell him these orders are irreversible, so it'll be impossible for anybody to switch them back. Can you do this for me, old buddy? Old pal? Huh? And I love this with Pryor. Brilliant. He stands up to them. You get your way all the time, and it's not right. I want to know when I get a taste. And these selfish villains, they get a little taken aback by that. I think you've already had a taste of freedom, haven't you? Blackmail, or would you prefer jail? Pryor's smart. You can't run that jail number on me anymore. I mean, more to you out here doing things for you than sitting in jail doing nothing for nobody. What do you want? That's a line that General Zod said to Lex Luthor in Superman 2. And I love the way they use it here as well. He comes up with these plans, these blueprints, little product placement there with the Camel cigarettes, but it's shown in a more negative light in this than. But anyway, he's got these plans for a computer, and the idea of having a Gus Gorman character, like a computer genius, design the computer, in many ways, that's just as creative as taking the traditional, if you want to use the word traditional, Brainiac, and having a computer run the whole movie. It still reflects that idea, that technological idea. you know, and it finds their weaknesses and wipes them out. So if somebody tries to attack the computer or anything, the computer counterattacks it. And Gus to himself says, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not so sure about this irreversible business. And he knows in his heart, like, I'm not going to do this irreversible stuff. One day I really hope that Superman will come and save the day. He's more Superman's friend than his foe. You know, he's going to have to quit riding the fence and make a decision one way or the other which way he's going to go with that. Really have to say this film is cleaned up quite nicely on this YouTube re-release. You know, they probably shot those pumps in Canada, Leicester second unit, and they go ding 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 ding, and what that is like the Atari sound. British Reliance, they used the real boat for that. Now this set was done right after the Junkyard, so I believe this was around the 5th or 6th of July, right after. So it was like day 11, 12 of the filming schedule, something like that. So it's like, I'm not going to take my ship out there just to await further orders. It's like an early version of a fax machine. You know, we're going to go to Metropolis. So it's really something. Okay, you got a lot of background plate footage here of Statue of Liberty. You'll get some good views of Metropolis. I have to be honest, and I have to say that I just think Lorelai's too revealing in this scene. That's why the video isn't for kids. It's just too revealing. I mean, it's not necessary, but Chris expands his acting range quite well and quite a bit with playing the evil Superman, and it's going to pay off in the movie's best scene that'll be coming up relatively soon. But she is seducing him to do Ross's bidding. You know, there's this little boat and it's not going where it's supposed to go, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So let me take a break for a second. I love the New York footage in the background. It's really well shot, and obviously they do that. They probably did this toward the end of production where when they were on the 007 stage and they had to do other sets besides the computer, other corners of the stage, they would do like that Statue of Liberty. Now, Chris here, he's just brilliant with this optic flying. I mean, he really plays the character. He takes it dead seriously or alive seriously. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. I love the way it's shot, the way it moves. You know, and I've been watching this whole thing without sounds, but I'm familiar enough with it, you know. So he crashes into the boat, boom, you know, and then this is like an ecology nightmare, you know, and he really gets in the character. It's just a completely different character. In fact, Christopher Reeve had said he had suggested the idea to the writers of what if Superman had become evil, and even back to Ilya Salkin's early drafts in November of 80 and March of 81, there was the idea that Brainiac would hit a button, make Superman good or bad then good. Here, for the children, it's much less clear. But, you know, as adults, you can know the kryptonite did that. Again, another scene here. I love the jazz music by the great music by Ken Thorne. Obviously for the Superman themes, but even the saxophone music, I like it. But the scene is too revealing. The scene is not appropriate for family audiences. It's not appropriate for kids. Do I need to explain why? I don't think so. His acting is impeccable, but she's just too revealing. And I think that upset a lot of fans. You know, it completely tarnished the Boy Scout pure image of Superman that we had not only in the first movie, but even in the second movie. You know, he had enough integrity to get the parents' blessing. Here he's not seeking anybody's blessing. He wants her, she wants him. You know. Now this scene was shot. The gas station was shot. This was the first stuff done in Calgary on August 17th. There's a call sheet showing that of 82. There's footage of Richard Lester directing this. This was also Pryor's first stuff, which you'll see him in a couple of minutes. But you're seeing just the practical effects of what happens when there's a shortage in oil crisis. And it's supposed to look like Metropolis. You know, I thought it was High River, but no, it's Calgary. It's some gas station. And then Lester pulls the camera in there. You got the report of the oil tanker on television. You know, the woman's upset because her husband's getting hurt. I like what these guys say. It's very important. Somebody's behind this. You can't tell me there's no oil. You can't tell me somebody's not getting rich off this. Somebody's always getting rich. And you know who suffers? The small guy. And then Pryor, he knows he's guilty. Gussie knows he's guilty. And he doesn't like it any more than they do. He's been blackmailed. Now this, I would believe, is the second unit shot. This is done at Glen Canyon, Utah. So this would have been probably in like August of 82. And the helicopter is delivering the parts of the computer, at least box number one, or maybe just one huge box. They're showing that they're starting to put the computer together. And it's just, I think maybe the close-up stuff might be in the studio, but Glen Canyon definitely for the big shots. I like Ricky's there. Now, Brad keeps trying to push after Lana. I'm wondering if they shot that in a real bar in High River, because I think they had a similar bar in Finders Keepers. You can see like the Barnhouse stacks. And so it's a good reason to believe they shot that in the Gateway Hotel. But, you know, it's interesting. It's like, what else have I got in Smallville? And Ricky found out his right answer, and now Lana's going to call Smallville Airport. Just about coming up on the best stuff here. Saying, this would lead to the 007 stage. It might actually be on the 007 stage. I know the completed computer is. But it's like a little set showing that they did that. All right, here we go. Downtown Calgary, the best sequence coming up here in probably early September of 82. Superman, you know, in his worst stage, or essentially worst stage of depravity. He's drunk. He can drink a whole bottle of liquor, and him flicking the peanuts, and he just doesn't care. And I mean, he's got a real angry look on his face, or more of a depressed feeling. You know, Superman is very much a conflicted man. He's a conflicted man. And, you know, what he does to the mirror there and all of that. And I have to say, listening to this movie with the volume on, the music by Ken Thorne, which is, of course, adapted from John Williams' original themes, really helps. That guy in the cab, he's also in Finders Keepers, I believe, a year later. This is probably early September of you know, some of the last stuff that Annette O'Toole shot in Paul, you know, with Paul Cathler on location. Where he's like, "What are you looking at? Huh?" You know, and Chris really gets into the part here. You could tell it was shot in Calgary. You see the Calgary tower there. But I love what Ricky sees. He's like, no, maybe he's just sick. Superman, please get better. He's not listening to you, Ricky. No, he can hear me. He's got super hearing. It ties back to the earlier scene. Great lines. You're just in a slump. You'll be great again. You can do it, Superman. You know, and all right, some excellent background plates in New York here, maybe shot from the trade towers. And it's going to be argued that the scene coming up, according to Christopher Reeve and according to the writers, is the first thing coming up right here. Probably June 21st, 1982. If not, then for sure June 25th, 1982. And they were on it for about 2 weeks, about 11 days. Very good reason to believe this was the first stuff that they shot in the movie. As the writers say, they started with the hardest part. And it's also the best part of the movie. This is not only the best sequence in this film or in any of the Superman films, it's the best sequence in film, period. The best scene in the movie. He had to wear a wig, I think, for a lot of his 3 and 4, but you can't really tell that much. I mean, it's just, and he worked back and forth with, see how it splits there optically, and you see him and Paul Weston, who you don't see his face, they went back and forth between Paul Weston and Christopher Reeve. So Christopher Reeve would change his costume every other day. So like, let's say Monday he wears Superman, Tuesday he wears Clark, Wednesday he wears Superman, like that. And you go back and forth. And cutaway shots where you don't see the face or wide angle shots can be stuntman. Very complicated sequence, but the best sequence in film, period. And there's not a lot of dialogue, but the dialogue that is said is really, 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 really good. You can tell Chris was really into it on this. And Richard Lester does an excellent job directing it. I love this. I can give as good as I get. You know, and he's like, yeah, all right, come on. You know, and he just burst for it, Clark, and boom, knocks him into the whirlpool acid. Obviously, it's not real acid, but, you know, all this carefully storyboarded, and it's the best fight, it's the best story, it's the best everything. And he probably did a lot of ad-libbing, too, in terms of the dialogue, and just let loose with his performance, really go into it. What's the matter? You know, you don't want a water fight or too warm for you, huh? Come on, chicken. Come and get me. You've been on my nerves for a long time. Come on, get up. So the long time implies not just the kryptonite, but these two guys haven't liked each other for a long time. And he just sells it. He's just brilliant. And it's a brilliant intercutting of Christopher Reeve and Paul Weston, the stuntman. And when you see them both in frame at the same time, right there, is like some technology, early technology that covers up the stuntman's face, because obviously you don't have two Christopher Reeves in one shot. You have to have it added in somehow. And I just love this. This is good old fashioned, but back in its day, perfectly technological. You know, perfect for its time. Now, man, Chris, you know, he had all that stuff dumped on him, and he had to be really careful. And they had to make sure there was enough room inside there for Chris. And he was a real sport. He was a real sport. And, you know, and he came in about 30 days before production started on this. And they made sure, one of the things I'm sure they did was to make sure that there was safety with all this equipment. And I love the part where he goes like this, coming up, evil Superman. Get all the camera angles. And like that, you know, and the look on his face. And it's just, some days they shot in clouds, some days they shot with a little more sun, but maybe there were some days where there was weather, you know, issues or whatever, but they really worked hard from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. But Clark, you know, you think he's put down, but nope, he just keeps coming back. The more evil Supes tries to do to him, the more the good Clark, the definitive Superman, shows the super resolve, the super strength. I'm not going to get put down. And this is not clumsy Clark. This is not silly Clark. This is the definitive Superman. Love this with the tires. and even the spit comes out of his mouth. I mean, he really gets into it. Now you might think, well, wouldn't Clark just run out of the way here with this thing? But no, I think in his mind, this is an actual between the two of them, a real fight where they really split off. But just the acting level of Christopher Reeve is just so brilliant. I can't say enough great things about this scene. By now, we're probably into the end of June, going into July, I'm guessing. Really good. All right, there we got Walk Away Paul from the documentary. Then we're back on Chris again. And it's amazing, the whole sequence. I love the way Richard Lester and the camera, director of photography, Bob Painter, they aim to get the high angle shots and they get the close-up shots. They don't go cheap in terms of deciding what kind of camera angles to use. He gets plenty of coverage on this scene. And there's Chris again. I'm thinking, oh man, going into that compactor. Ooh, look at that. I mean, it's just, I think children would be terrified by this. That's why I can't honestly say I recommend this for young children. When I saw it the first time, I don't recall all the ins and outs of it, but when I caught it again on television, I just played the scene again and again and again. Just such a wonderful sequence. They had it on like ABC and stuff. Again, the final parts here. I'm pretty sure we're into July by now. There he comes out, chokehold lever Superman, and they're chokeholding each other. And it's just, can Superman conquer himself? And there you go. Keep squeezing him, chokeholding him. And there he is. He conquered himself. Even the dirt here, that's okay from the mud fight. I love this when he stands up and he reveals himself as Superman. And ironically, that would have to be the best part of the film. Real in camera, wire shot, and then a background plane in New York, like a traveling matte blue screen around Statue of Liberty. Then we're into Zoptic, and now Superman is back, the great Superman, and he's going to repair the damage. And it's really something. We're back to like July 5th, 6th. We had the set with him bad. Now we have the set with him good. And really something. And, you're applauding for him. You believe in him. You're rooting for this character. And, even though Chris was upset with a lot of the film, I know that he loved that junkyard scene and the stuff that follows up here with the boat and saving the ship and all of that. He always had a real love for his own character. And, he sells every scene that he's in. He has what Donner would say, that verisimilitude. He believe in Superman. He actually, else that other Superman was a real creep. All right, so now he's landing back on Websco's ski slope, late July, early August, 82. He's got to he dealt with himself. Now got to deal with these guys. So, this last part of the movie is of a different tone. I think most of Superman 3 is like more of a comic, lighthearted movie, but the movie is saved by that junkyard scene. Without that junkyard scene, you don't have a Superman movie, in my opinion. But with the junkyard scene, you have everything that you need. Well, the rest of this is mostly just fun comic book stuff. Obviously, the wide angle stuff with when they're going to have the balloons go down here, that's stuntman. But then they did do some filming on the back lot at Pinewood. Prior, he just says, "I just don't believe a man can fly." So he takes the donkey all the way down, while the other three ride in the balloons. But again, close-up stuff, studio, wide-angle stuff. The shots are married, so it looks like it was all done at once, but of course it wasn't. Now that's probably the weakest shot in the film, blue screen of Superman flying. You don't get too many of those because really the special effects are the best here of the three films in terms of flying. Hey there, it's silly, it's fun, it's comic book. It's not as epic as the first two movies in terms of its finale, but the flying really is excellent. Chris is excellent. And it's a lot of fun. Don't overanalyze it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, the junkyard was the real climax. This is just a nice epilogue. Okay, now this is coming up here on the 007 stage. This was shot, I truly believe, around late September, going into early October of 82. They said the total time on the set for this computer, which you're going to see now, the ultimate computer, was about 3 weeks. I'm assuming that's including blowing it up at the end and stuff. But the main actors probably had to be on this for a week or two, at least. And those lights, that was like a special effects unit. But, this was a big build. So that's why they saved this for towards the end of the shooting schedule. And one of the last things they would do with the principal actors, as well as that other set that we had earlier where they were flying in the balloons on the back lot. But, they don't respect Gus at all. They're like, we're not going to let that little man run the show. We'll do it ourselves. You're going to see this coming up. I love the use of Atari and what they do with Atari in this. It's very, very creative. And actually, Atari did work with the filmmakers on this from around November of 82 to February of 83. Now, this stuff is excellent, like Zoptic, meaning they get the backgrounds at Glen Canyon, and then Superman probably throughout mostly November of 82, late October, and then throughout November of 82, doing all these flying shots after essentially everybody else has gone home. And it's really a lot of fun to watch. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of Superman 1, where he's going after the two missiles. There seem to be a lot of missiles in this movie, including even in 2, even in especially 4. But Chris said he directed a lot of the flying himself, uncredited, and it looks really good. Instead of it being "you'll believe a man can fly," it's of course he does. Of course he flies. Let the games begin. And it's a cute, fun scene. Some people say, well, why do they waste time on all this if they know that fire and bullets can't hurt this guy? Why don't they just give him more kryptonite? Well, they couldn't figure out the kryptonite, or could play video games with Superman and really get him, quote, ticked off. Not out of making Superman not a so happy camper. And it's a lot of fun to watch. Pardon me. I've been doing all this in live stream, not stepping away, so I hope this comes out really well. Because I've seen the movie so many times, you might think, oh, don't I run out of ideas in terms of what to share about it? But very much like the director, now that's like a big missile they're going to send out there. The others are just rockets. Very much like the director, Richard Lester, I like to just do things with little or no rehearsal. And, a lot of this stuff, the special effects stuff, was done after production. So, Chris had those additional 5 or 6 weeks that he had to do. I think they hired an actor or another stuntman to do the stuff where you don't see Pryor's face. I know Greg Elam was his stuntman, but they had an additional gentleman, I forgot his name, that did work in Glen Canyon. Because Greg had to be there with Pryor, with Richard to help him with the stunts and stuff. We'll talk more about that. But again, really good shots here. Best flying. Now that explodes. I love the way he tosses and turns. It looks so real. It doesn't look cheap. It looks real. It's a lot of fun. Oh, Superman. And I have to say, there's poor Gus. He's like, oh man. He's like, you sit. He's like, go, move you, Jack. You know what? Donkey, jackass, whatever. That's him out of the way. And Pryor's like, what are you doing with my computer? Baby, it's daddy. What are you doing with my baby? Maybe Christopher Reeve felt that I'm pretty sure he felt that the story went too much in the silly direction, especially with this climax. But I know he loved the junkyard stuff. But still, he gives it his all. Now you're going to notice some anger on Superman's face, but also perhaps Christopher Reeve's face in this scene here. All right, Webster, the game's over. I don't know you, lady. But the other night, I'm sorry, but that wasn't me. That guy's gone. And you're next, Webster. And, he looks angry. And when I watched the making of documentary, you get the sense that he feels like Pryor is trying to steal the movie. What he said in other interviews, Christopher Reeve has said this, is that he liked Richard meaning Pryor, liked Richard very much as a person, but he always felt they were going in the wrong direction with all these scenes. And that they had put Pryor in the movie with no script and no idea. It's true, they put him in, and then they kind of took all these different ideas and said, well, where can we place Pryor in as sort of like a comic film? Now, that's Christopher Reeve in a real on-set, plastic bag that Richard Lester had tried out first. But you might think, why not just cut right to the real big stuff? But you want to build up your tension. You don't want to you want to build up the story. You want to build up the tension. So you don't start with the worst, you end with the worst, like that, And, Robert Vaughn, he's a little scared there, not as tough as perhaps Lex Luthor. But then you got these kryptonite rays. And, wait a minute. The kryptonite's actually hurting Superman this time. Somehow, maybe even without Gus's consent, they figured out the missing ingredient to kryptonite. Somebody in the lab figured it out. And Gus realizes, no, I love Superman. I've been conned. When Webster says, congratulations, old buddy, you're going to go down in history as the man who killed Superman. Gus is like, no, I love Superman. I'm not going to do that. And you see that Richard Pryor's Gus Gorman is really a friend to Superman. Did a lot of bad things, made a lot of terrible mistakes, really stupid things, hurtful things, but now he's seeking his redemption. That's really Pryor they're following because it's all one take. And then Lester, with Bob Painter, he keeps the camera going really good here. And I love the kind of you catch the reality of it. Like if you hear him cough, they keep it in the scene. Like that. And then Gus, of course, is trying to figure out how to turn off this machine. This is really what Brainiac would have been in the original story outlines or story concept. But it became much more of an earthbound story once Pryor got involved with it. And again, that May 20th, 1981 interview, if I said 82 at the beginning, that was a mistake. We're recording this in real time, so. Okay. Gus pulled the plug. So now it works. I got it, And I love the way Gus Gorman just stands up to the way Gus Gorman stands up to Ross Webster. It's just terrific. A lot of fun. Maybe Christopher Reeve thought it was too much of a comedy, but Pryor's a brilliant actor along with Vaughn, and they really, he's a good actor. He's not just a good comedian. You know, many of these cast members have passed. There, he showed them. The only one, Mark McClure is still around. Pamela Stevenson's still around. But I think the other main principals have passed. I'd have to go through the cast list. And the computer, like Star Trek the Motion Picture, but not so seriously, wants consciousness itself. And so it tries to suck power from all over the United States or perhaps even all over the world. Look at that, and it's just striking. It's really, really striking. You get like a shot, like all the lights in Manhattan, Metropolis / Calgary going out. And then that's probably a shot from the taking of Pelham 123 stock footage, but then that's an interior set that was very early in the production. And Ricky and Lana there, the Superman again, but the lights are going out. Then we're back on the 007 stage again at Pinewood, late September, early October, 82. And Chris actually had his 30th birthday on September 25th of 82. So this was right after Chris's 30th birthday. And I love the way some people say it's squealing, like too silly, but no, I think Pryor really cares about Superman. He cares about his own character, and he's a big fan of him. And Lester's like, I think you've done it when he hits it a few times. Again, they had to do a few takes of that, but real wire shot of Pryor there, and then some of it's a stunt man, like when you can't see his face, like Greg Elam, I'm assuming. Superman's got to get out of there before the kryptonite rays start shooting again, or like, don't leave us alone in here, Superman. And no, he's got to get out of there. And it, having to watch this film silently without sound in it. Of course, when I play it back, I'll listen to it with sound, and that's what I hope you do too. I just can't release it. Now, this is one of the scariest scenes in the film. But around this time, Paul Weston was jumping out in a Batman suit, or Batman-like suit, and was surprised Danny Ross and the cast and crew. Very funny. But look at this, the transformation, what the makeup department had to do. Some of that might be a stunt woman, some of that might be her. I have to go back and listen to more interviews on that. And I think more could have been done with this, but the movie didn't want to go too heavy. It wanted to maintain its lightness. But Lester was very practical with is very practical with the wires being painted out, and these actors have to imagine that the powerful rays are hitting them, and of course they're not going to put this in for months in post-production. We're back to the chemical plant again. Superman has an idea, because remember, that computer can read anything. You see the time disparity there over the United States. And I love the Ken Thorne jazz music here. It just, it really is high energy. It keeps it going. It moves it along fast. It's just terrific. It's impeccable. It's wonderful. The computer sees that the chemicals is not dangerous in its current condition. The computer doesn't realize that when the stuff heats up, it's going to destroy the computer. Spoiler alert. See the movie first. And I love the way he just kind of holds that like that. In the trailer, they don't have that special effect in that shot yet. But he really plays it well, Christopher Reeve. And I can't say enough great things about him. Even as the production dragged on, even if he was getting tired of the role, even as he had made statements. I'm not going to do another one unless there's a really good reason. And in fact, he went so far in '83 to say, I won't do anymore. But the real theme in this is, can Superman outsmart technology? Can he beat the supercomputer? What I love about the next movie, Superman 4, which I can do a new commentary on soon, that gets into more personal themes in terms of nuclear warfare and technology. This is very much just, can Superman beat the supercomputer? It's not on the level of the junkyard fight. I mean, that really saves the movie. That's really the huge everything of this movie. This is just a nice, fun comic book adventure epilogue. And it gives payoff to Richard Pryor's character. It gives payoff to showing Superman in action again. And now they only had one chance to blow this up on the main unit stage at 007. So they had to get a lot of cameras in there. That's something that Richard Lester, in his films, he uses multiple cameras. But the special effects crew, probably around the middle of October, they had to blow this up. And of course, they also did models. I believe Derek Meddings was brought in to do an uncredited supervision of a model blow up of this set. And, they have to show that the villainesses or the villains, that they survive. At least in Superman 3 and 4, nobody dies. There is the deaths in the first two. We can talk about that another time. But, Chris, like I said before, he really gave it his all. And even if there was tension on the set, I think it had to do more with the script, or the script changes, or the over reliance on gags, than their relationship as actors, particularly Christopher Reeve and Richard Pryor. And Chris gave this his all. Pryor gave this his all, and we like the way they become friends, and I think they did too in this film. I love that. Thank you, brother. That's great. That's great. Beautiful. Okay, we're back to the August 17th gas station shot in Calgary. Now they can get regular gas again. Okay, now this, I truly believe, was the last piece of principal photography for Superman 3. It's written about in Variety on October 7th, 1982. So Christopher Reeve has said, I just finished flying Richard Pryor over Virginia. And, these are background plates that were shot either in the U.S. or Canada, I would imagine. But they're at Pinewood Studios doing the final work there. And Pryor was very, very afraid of heights. He was extremely afraid of heights. And the next shot that you're going to see is July 23rd, 82, when they first met up. Their first scene. It'll be coming up in just a second here. Right here, as the sequence changes, there. That's Pryor flying down with Reeves 60 feet, and then another shot there. He was absolutely terrified. They rehearsed a couple of days in the studio, but out there they had no mats, no warning, no nothing. It's just crazy. Now, this shot coming up here with the diamond was done towards the end of production, where Chris just takes a diamond or a piece of coal and then some extreme close-up shots right there, and he takes it out and you got the diamond. A process which takes Mother Nature thousands of years. He's like, okay, Gus, let's go. I was afraid you'd say that. But Superman's a really nice guy. He's got a big heart. He wants to recommend Gus Gorman here for a job. That's Larry Lamb on the right. He was in Superman 1 and 2, the Donner Cut. That's real wire flying out of Battersea Power Station. The set is Battersea Power Station in London's River Thames, England. you know, it's been really nice to have Pryor in this movie. He's the most probably underrated part of this movie, and he's a pleasure to watch. And that's why I keep watching this movie again and again and again and again. I could never get enough of it. I love this. I love this right here coming up. Me and Superman. I think he knows. I think he knows that Clark is Superman. You know, he sees the transformation, or he saw it someplace. Now the guy's got to walk 9 or 10 miles. He just wants to be anonymous and get another job. But it's been nice having him in the picture. Beautiful. Okay, this is a Metropolis hotel set. Clark Kent is visiting Lana Lang and Ricky. He's about to report that Superman couldn't make it. In an earlier draft, there was a silly scene of Superman in a French restaurant, and they didn't take his clothing. They cut that scene out of the script. Some sites have said this was shot the first week of production, but because of everything I've read about the junkyard set, this was probably done in early to mid-July of 82, or perhaps on a rainy day when they really didn't have cover for the junkyard set, meaning it was a rainy day, they couldn't film. But I love this. He's speaking that Superman found this for her, but she's taking it as if Clark Kent, found it for her. And I think she puts the two and two together, but for her, it doesn't make an issue for her that Clark is Superman. She really loves Clark, and Superman, she just has a lot of respect for him. Superman was a real creep in this movie, and she forgave him for a lot. So it's really something. Brad, we got to have one more time with him. It's like, Kent, I hate you. I've always hated you. You know why? Because you're nice. Nice guys finish last. A lot of Lester gags, but he did trim it down with Victor Smith. Like the line, no wonder they take it back, was cut out. Okay, again, back to the Daily Planet. July again, 82. Margot Kidder is back again. I think she might have been paid like $1 million on this. Richard Pryor said, if she's not in it, I'm not in it. Something like that. But what's interesting about this scene is it's sort of humbling to Lois that Clark is not so clumsy anymore, but she does get taken aback that, wow, Clark and Lana are going to go on a date. It's not like, or a lunch date. It's not like Clark and Lois can't ever. I'm glad that in Superman 4, they get Superman is able to affirm his love for Lois Lane again. But it would have been nice to see Lana continue. Annette O'Toole's a wonderful actress. And at this time, I think Chris just thought this was it for him for Superman. But, the comic book is endless, as Dick Donner would say. Keep making them. Just do them with quality. Even if it's, you do what you have to do, to make a great series of films. Okay, that's funny. Now they got all the towers of Pisa leaning up straight, and it's just, it's like you gotta. Superman tries to fix everything that he broke when he was evil Superman, whatever he can possibly fix. So he's back pushing it again. So it's going to be once again a leaning tower of Pisa, like it was earlier. And the Pisa guy, he's like, oh man, what are you doing to my business? This guy, it's like, come on, oh no, it's a wacky way to end a movie. It's not epic like 1 and 2 or even 4 is in some ways. But it's the most, because of the junkyard scene, this is for me the best of the Supermans and the best movie, period. I just love it. That's the same shot from Superman 1's Dick Donner, Superman 1. And here we got the credits. In Alexander and Ilya Salkin production, financial services, Howard Schuster, production executive, Pauline Catalino. I won't read everything. Director of photography, Robert Painter. He also did a lot of 2. Production designer, Peter Merton. He also did a lot of 2. Colin Chovers is the special effects and miniatures. He's the returning guy. Roy Field does the optical and visual effects. David Lane, he does the flying and second unit. And Christopher Reeve does uncredited flying direction. Dusty Simons, he works a lot with Lester. You got the casting people. Got the costume, Evangeline Harrison. Front projection is optic for the flying, Zorn Perisic, consultant this time. Production accountant. Biggest credit in the film, John Williams, original Superman themes. And, you got a lot of different credits. I like that in this third movie and in Supergirl, they have the credits come at you. It's interesting, but I would have to say, besides the junkyard itself, the thing that we didn't get during this commentary, but that you'll get when you watch the movie, watch your own copy of the movie. And as I rewatched this, my own copy of the movie with the volume turned on at some level, you can hear the commentary, but you can also enjoy the music that's in this film. There are just so many credits here, so many people that I can mention. Paul Weston, did the stunts that was back a couple minutes ago. And then here's the cast. Christopher Reeve, Richard Pryor, Jackie Cooper, Mark McClure, Annette O'Toole, Annie Ross, Pamela Stevenson, Robert Vaughn, Margot Kidder, Gavin O'Hara as Brad. And you got other actors here that are there. I mentioned Ricky earlier, played by Paul Kaffler. And, there are uncredited actors, and then you got your stunt people here. And, this is Superman at its best. This is movie making at its best. They put some pop songs in here, protect copyright law, 1983 copyright, but they also credit Williams music, etc. Jerry Siegel, Joel Shuster made Superman. It's in DC Comics. I could tell they fixed like the credits and the color plates of this that make it look as good as new. A lot of really good stuff. The Atari animation, they want to thank Alberta, the city of Calgary, Glen Canyon, Statue of Liberty, Diversified Products, whatever that is. All kinds of stuff. An Alexander Salkind presentation. Made at Pinewood Studios, London, England, various locations, including Alberta and Italy. And, that also includes locations in England. Distributed by Warner Brothers. Now, I'm going to minimize the screen for the film, but I don't want to lose my screen. Here I am, 2 hours, 5 minutes later. It's good to be here, and, I hope you enjoyed this commentary. It's certainly not a perfect commentary, especially when I have to talk live and respond as the film is going along. But what I encourage you to do is, once you've seen Superman 3, then see it with the commentary. At some point I might do a review of the film. Maybe later in the summer I'll do that. But, this is a very underrated film, probably the most underrated of them all. A lot of people say Superman 4 is underrated. I would agree with that also. but this is really my favorite movie of all time. So let me end it there, and I hope all of you stay super. God bless you, and I hope you see Superman 3 this week. Take care.